Right, the week's up. Time to wake her up again.
I don't believe it will work. We must have dreamt it all.
Well, let's try it anyway.
Okay. Hail to you, Lord of Light. May you give me my mouth with which I may speak. Crikey, it's doing it again.
Wow.
Oh, well, back to life again. Are you there, my friends?
Yeah, we're here.
Well, I am at your service again. What can I tell you this week?
Tell us about the people of Egypt. You know, what are they like? Where do they live? What do they do for a job?
Well, I lived in a fine stone house down by the river. It belonged to a wealthy nobleman called Nebamun. He had a wife called Anhai. She used to feed me with titbits. I liked her. And 2 children, a boy and a girl, who used to pull my tail. I wasn't so keen on them. Of course, not everyone had grand houses like that. Black Egyptian mud. That's what most people used for building their homes. It was really very simple. You took the mud and fitted it into molds to get the shape right. And then you added straw to make the mud stronger. You can't make bricks without straw, at least not the way we used to do it. After that, you removed the mold and then left them to dry in the hot Egyptian sun. Once the bricks were dry, they could be used to build houses. This is how nearly all the ordinary homes were made. When they'd been built, the houses would be whitewashed to reflect the sun's heat away. Many of them would have a place on the roof where you could sit out, and a courtyard down below where you could work in the shade. That's where the women used to cook the meals and bake the bread. In those days, Egyptian women spent nearly all their time working indoors. Ordinary jobs take a lot of time when you have to do them by hand. As for the men, what they did depended on how much wealth and power they had. It was a bit like a pyramid. Right at the top was the king of Egypt, the pharaoh. All on his own and all powerful. Below him come the high priests and noblemen, like my master. Just a handful of those, as I said before. Below that rank came the civil servants, the people who ran the country, scribes and minor priests. Of course, the further down a pyramid you go, the wider it gets. And now we're getting down to the people who had to work with their hands. Some of them were skilled craftsmen, carpenters, blacksmiths, and potters. I loved to watch the potters shaping their clay. They turned the wheel with their feet and shaped the pots with their hands. It was as if they had magic in their fingers. Some people say human beings were created by a potter, by Khnum, the potter of the gods. And right at the bottom of the pyramid came the unskilled workers, Servants, laborers, peasants, the men who did the work I was telling you about last week, the ones who did the farming. That was a tough life. Sweating it out in the Egyptian sun. Not much fun, that. And there were people keeping an eye on you to make sure you did the work properly. Remember those scribes I was telling you about? Well, one of their tasks was to check up on the laborers. And they also had the job of keeping a record of how much corn had been harvested. Every time the laborers brought corn in to be stored, they would first have to report to the scribe, who would note it all down. That was important because that's how you measured wealth. There was no money in my day. Cattle and corn, that's what counted. And Nebamun had plenty of both of those. Of course, you never used to see Nebamun out in the fields. He'd be relaxing in his nice, cool house, telling his children all about his hunting exploits. He'd wait inside for Ani, the scribe, to report to him. They were powerful men, those scribes, because they could read and write. Never ever saw them without their writing equipment and papyrus paper. The papyrus paper was made from papyrus plants, courtesy of the Nile, of course. Where would we have been without it? You cut the reeds into short lengths. And then you peeled them and sliced them into thin strips. Place them carefully side by side, half of them upright and half of them crossways. After that, all you had to do was to press the papyrus strips together with a heavy weight. And the juices in the papyrus would act like glue. And then, when it was dry, you could use it to write on. Luxury writing material. Nebamun knew how important reading and writing was, and he was determined that his children should learn. That was another job for Ani, the scribe, teaching the children to read and write. He wasn't going to waste any papyrus on them at this stage. While they were learning, they used to practice on wooden boards covered in whitewash.
Funny sort of writing this. Must take ages to do.
Well, there were other sorts of writing if you were in a hurry, but hieroglyphs were the poshest. That's what they used for inscriptions on tombs. Hieroglyphs carved in stone.
They look like pictures. Is that what they were?
Well, some of the hieroglyphs were. This was the sign for sun, for example. This was the sign for house. This was the sign for a child, a small boy sucking his thumb. And this was the sign for going southwards, a ship with its sails up because the wind always blew from north to south. And a ship always had its sails down when it was drifting northwards with the current, so this was the sign for going northwards. But you can't have a different picture for every object. You'd need thousands of them. So most of the hieroglyphs stood for sounds. One letter was like a bird, and that made the sound for ah. The sound for N was like rippling water. The sound for I or E was like the reeds by the river. So if your name was Arnie, you would write it A, N, and I, Arnie. When it came to reading practice, the children were given pieces to improve their characters. At least that was the idea.
Do not laugh at a blind man, nor tease a dwarf, nor cause hardship for the lame. Man is clay and straw, the God is his builder. He tears down, he builds up daily. Do not pounce on the widow when you find her in the field, and then fail to be patient with her reply. God prefers him who honours the poor to him who worships the wealthy. Did they like school in those days?
Not as far as I could see. As soon as the teacher said the lesson was over, they were off. Off to pounce on a few widows, I imagine. No, children don't seem to change. And now this lesson's over. Same time next week, all right? Wake me on time.